Good day, everyone, and welcome into the iRacing Today radio show for July the 1st, 2016. This is show number 148 of the iRacing Today radio show. My name is Trevor Cameron. I am your host, and with me, but not in video and not in anything right now if you're watching the video portion, I have Mr. Chad Dalton. How you doing tonight, Chad?
You don't even have fake Chad up?
I don't, because I thought, being July 1st, instead of having fake Chad, I'd put this guy up. So, if you were watching the video portion, which Chad may or may not be, I don't know. He probably isn't, because he doesn't have any internet.
Nope.
So, Chad should know.
I don't watch this show. I hate this show.
Chad should know that there is a happy little beaver waving a Canadian flag, and it says Happy Canada Day there instead of your smiling fake face.
I will give it to you because it is fitting, considering, that it may or may not be Canada Day.
Well, it is. It's not.
I know. I was just being sarcastic.
Oh, I see.
I'm trying to be funny, keep it live up here, lively, stepping. I don't know. You Canadians wouldn't understand.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure most Americans think that Canadians are just actually a myth told to them in schools. It's like, and up north of us, there are other people who live there in the frigid, frozen tundras.
Some of them speak French, and others are English, and I'm like, oh, really? That sounds like a fairy tale land.
It's a magical land where people don't speak Spanish, as opposed to most of the states that I've been in, even the ones that aren't all south. Which is, although when you get really far down south, it's mostly Spanish. I've done a lot of work down in southern Texas, and that was mostly Spanish and not English, which was a little bit weird and unusual for me. But anyway, it is Canada Day, so happy Canada Day for all my fellow Canadians, and it'll be July 4th, so it'll be Independence Day for our American compadres, our compatriots. Our American listeners in a few days as well. So long weekend, kind of bookend it with the Canadian holiday on the Friday and the American holiday on the Monday, which means that for 4 days, nothing gets done because I'm not working today. And when I go back to work on Monday, because I'll be working, nobody I work with in the States is going to be at work, so nothing's going to get done. So it's a great long weekend.
Yep. So... I think on that note, we should start the show.
We should start the show. So we're a day late again because this time it wasn't my fault. So I'm just happy with that.
Yeah. Wasn't my fault either. I don't know whose fault it was.
Well, you're the one who said, "Hey, I've got something else just popped up. I can't do the show." So even if it's not your fault, it's your fault. So
that's true.
Same thing when
my fault though.
When I bail on the show because I have family things going on, it's not my fault because I'm not the one who had the thing. It was the family, but it's still my fault. You see, you got to own it, man. You got to own it.
Okay, well, I'll own it.
Okay.
Somebody gave me a dinner party, and I was like, I guess I should be there because I'm like the birthday boy and stuff. So I can't do a podcast. It's like, but thanks for telling me because it would have kind of been weird if Trevor's all like, hey, man, I'm ready to do a show. Like, oh, yeah, sorry, I'm wearing a party hat and having dinner.
What was
My bad.
Was it good food? It was
delicious.
Excellent. See?
And lots of cake. And I'm sick of cake now. Until next year.
It's amazing. It's like, man, I love cake. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, here's a bunch of cake. It's like, you don't need a bunch of cake. Nobody ever needs a bunch of cake. You need some cake, and then you're good.
Exactly. So, but yeah. So, but anyways, show.
The show. Okay, so we've got a few things to go over here. We got some information on that 25% thing, because if you think that you missed out on it, well, maybe you didn't. We've got some experiences out there on the track, including One for me that it revolves around my race, but there was a unique moment in that race that I would like to share with you guys. So I'm looking forward to telling that story. We have an email from a listener that asked us some questions, and we thought, hey, we could respond to him via email, or we could just broadcast it to the world, because maybe some other people are thinking the same things he is. So we're going to go over that. An interesting discovery I discovered. I put it on Twitter, but I just wanted to kind of mention on the show about the Z1 dashboard, which, of course, me and Chad both use, but I found something interesting about it. And, of course, there is a new blog, in case you missed it. We retweeted it out, and a bunch of people did as well, but they have another blog over on iRacing about the future of iRacing. They do that every few months or so. Steve will get on there, Steve Myers, and kind of write up a here's what's in the pipeline sort of post. So we're going to go over some of the highlights from that. And we also have some information on dirt licensing, because we've had that question of, hey, dirt's confirmed, but is it going to mess up my safety rating? Well, we got some answers for you, at least some planned answers as to how they might be handling that. So, going into the show, first things first, just to let you guys know that the 25% off all of the renewals of membership has been extended out until the 5th of July. So in case you forgot to renew already, I know Chad did not, because he said that he's good until the end of time. But...
No. I mean, unless 2019 happens to be the end of time, but I would rather doubt it.
Well, I mean, by then they'll have iRacing 2 out by 2019, so,
We've already done 2. It's iRacing 3.
Oh, right, yeah, I guess we are technically in 2.0. I forgot all about that whole marketing push in that direction. But anyway, they've extended out to the July the 5th, probably because they said, hey, you know what? Maybe we're not getting as much traffic on this because everybody's going towards a long weekend and they're probably forgetting about this thing. So let's make it until the end of the long weekend, because people will probably be sitting at their computers while they're relaxing and saying, oh, right, the membership sale. I totally forgot because I was planning that camping trip or whatever. Which you may still miss because of your camping and you're not coming back till the 4th. Well, you still have time.
That doesn't help them.
Well, yeah, I guess, because you probably won't. Well, you'll still come back on the 4th because you got to be back to work on the 5th. So, but
True.
Anyway, it has been extended out.
Because I'm taking the 5th off. Because that's how I roll.
Excellent. Actually, I'm one of those people that helps out is me, because I didn't take advantage of it yet because payday wasn't until today, and now I can, because I'm going to extend it out as well, because I'm due up in September, so I might as well do it for cheaper. So that it actually helps me out, because I didn't have the money because it wasn't payday yet, but now it's payday and I have money. So
yay, payday!
Yay, payday! So anyway, in case you missed it, it's now extended out, and the promo codes you need are right smack dab on the front page, the very first story there, so you can't miss them. Just make sure that you actually use the promo codes and don't just renew it and say, well, I thought I was supposed to get 25% off. Well, you are if you put the code in. So don't be all like, wait, this is full price. What's going on? Trevor lied to me. What a jerk. You have to put the promo code in order to get the good prices going on. So
can't ever trust some Canadians.
See, again, we're make believe. We live we live up in
your fairy tale land,
the make believe land. So, although speaking of make believe lands, I found out through work that I might actually have a chance. I've already been to Germany. I found out I might get a chance in October to go to Ireland, which is super cool because I've always wanted to go to Ireland. So I might actually get to do that in October, which I'm really excited about. And then maybe head over to Scotland, which I've always wanted to do as well, because, of course, that's where my background is where my family originally came from. So I'd love to go over to Scotland one day, because I never had a chance. And I might get a chance in October, which is super cool. So now I just got to get down to Australia so I can meet, all of our listeners and half of our team. So that'll be, but I don't know if that's in the card yet, but, it's maybe someday I'll find a way to get down to Australia. So. So anyway, that is that. And Chad, where shall we go next in the meandering world of our show?
I think that we should talk about the blog from Steve Myers that was released, let's see, on June the 28th, so just a few days ago. There is a whole lot of just blogging and general stuff, but there's also some really cool things that he hit here in the blog. And in case you did not read it, we shall bring those up to you. And if you did read it, you're going to hear it again.
Yep. And I'll put a link in the show notes so you can then go read it again or for the very first time if you missed it.
Exactly. So a couple of things that I thought were interesting that aren't necessarily new features that I thought I would bring up because I thought it was kind of cool. He talks about in the very beginning of the post, he just kind of talks about iRacing and how iRacing has been around now for about 12 years. And they're over 50 employees strong. But one thing that he said that they have learned over the last couple of years that they have found that a lot of people have either discovered iRacing or come to join it, I guess, through social media and just media in general. And he said that the top thing that they found that was where people came from, basically, and joined iRacing with, is from YouTube, which doesn't surprise me, even though it does in a way. But it doesn't surprise me because not only, like, you're seeing people like us, like Trevor and I, and people like you guys out there streaming your race or at least having a recording of a race, and you are literally playing the game or the sim, as is. There's no edits to make it souped up, like, oh, this is the best thing ever. It's just, this is it, So like people get hands-on. Well, hands-on isn't the best, but they see the hands-on.
Eyes on.
Eyes on. They see what it is, with no, none of us work for iRacing, so we're not marketing, we're trying to build it up and sell it, like we're just like, hey, this is what I play, I enjoy it, it's fun, you should join it as well.
Which, one, disappointed that he didn't say the number one way that people have found iRacing is us. I mean, there was no direct mention of our show in there. So, Steve, very disappointed, but we forgive you. It's okay. We're still friends. We're still good. We're still good.
Bad Steve. You're going timeout.
But the other side of that too is, that's 100% correct. I know, it's been well established. I am more than a sim racer. I am just a gamer junkie, and that's anytime there's a new game coming out, that I'm interested in. Like, I don't even read written reviews or written previews and stuff. I just instantly go and try to find if there's a video of it, and try to watch some people play it to get an idea if I actually want to buy that game. So that's exactly how I do it with every other game, so it makes sense that people are doing that with iRacing as well.
Absolutely. The second thing that he mentioned that I thought was interesting is he did address the DDoS attacks, we've obviously talked about that, where people like to spend their money to ruin things for other people.
Yeah, jerks.
Exactly. So this is a sad thing that has happened with iRacing, and a line that I thought was very interesting that I wanted to point out. He said it's a sad state of affairs when we, meaning iRacing, have had to spend probably close to, get this, $500,000 and lose valuable development time on new features and content because of DDoS attacks. He did say, though, that they have basically blocked out 75% of the attacks that they have gotten without them ever hitting the site. But obviously some of them get through, and then they do the best that they can to fix it up. So there's an interesting paragraph there about DDoS attacks that I think everybody should read when they can.
And moving down the blog, one thing that caught my attention was the fact that I mentioned, virtual reality headsets on here and my desire to obtain one because of my gamingness. I do not have one yet, but I have made my decision. I believe that the one, I will get when the time comes is the HTC Vive, which was unfortunate because, well, as far as iRacing goes, because iRacing hadn't supported it yet, because they've been going with strictly the Oculus so far. But they did mention that, they said that they're hearing terrific things about their implementation of the Oculus Rift. He even highlights a tweet from Palmer Luckey, who's a head guy over at Oculus, mentioning that he had taken a look at it, and so that's cool. But he also says that fans of the HTC Vive should know we finally got one to the developers, and they are working on getting that implemented as well, as long as they can stop drawing dragons. So apparently they are spending a lot of time in Google Tilt Brush, which is one of the cool reasons why I want to get the HTC Vive, because I can't draw for beans, but man, that looks cool as all get out. Going and doing some drawing and stuff in 3D space and stuff, and it's one thing that I think I could actually get my wife in to do, because she's very artistic and likes to draw, and I think she would have a blast with it, as with my daughter. So, but apparently the development team, rather than developing how to race with the Vive, they are in Tilt Brush and drawing dragons. So now, is it the podcast dragon? Are they drawing pictures of our car that we've run in the past in endurance races? I don't know. I'm going to assume not. Bad, Steve. Bad.
They should get John Hensley up there. He can get a podcast dragon going. I do enjoy, speaking of the dragons thing, though, that they post a picture of Jamie drawing, and it's just funny because he's moving his hand in midair.
Well, and he's down on his knees, which means, because with the HTC, with the Vive, they got it's room scale stuff, so it's not just about where you're aiming at.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just had a delivery in the middle of my show. I got a Slippy.
Well, there you go.
Well, there you go.
I want one too.
So thumbs up for wives delivering Slurpees in the middle of shows.
I gotta get white.
They're quite convenient. But anyway, the fact that you're drawing, it's not just about right in front of you. I mean, you're if you want to draw something low, you're bending down and you're drawing down there and doing stuff, which is kind of telling with the picture that's there. So that's pretty cool. I can't wait to get one, but it's like karma, I guess, or fate or something here. The fact that somebody somewhere said, "Hey, Trevor has extra money because he's got this new job now. So all of the stuff that needed to happen that required money, we're not going to have, we held off on that. And then now that he's got the extra money, we'll just kind of throw all that stuff at him." So I feel like I actually have less money now than I did before I got the raise, because all of a sudden a bunch of stuff has happened. My van broke down. I had, to pick up this other piece of electronics for somebody else. I had, the fence fell down, so I had to, help to build that up. So I haven't had any money for a Vive yet because I don't have my money. I thought I had my money, but it seems everybody else has my money first. But at least now I got the money to pay for the other things. So it'll all even its way out eventually. So,
yeah.
So eventually, hopefully before the end of the year, I'm going to get me a Vive. And now that I know that they are developing it for iRacing, that's even better, because now I'll be able to use it for my racing car. So
Please stream your races when you get that so that we can see this thing on your face.
It's like, I don't know where the camera is. I don't know where the mic is that I'm going to speak to, but, whatever. I'm racing my car.
I look forward to that.
Indeed.
He then goes into covering some of the dirt track stuff, which, for the record, I cannot wait for this. Oh, man, I love dirt racing. Anyways, so he goes on to say that Williams Grove and Eldora are coming along quite well. They have some early version pictures where the track textures are actually in a placeholder, and they're making great progress. He does talk about that. We're not going to go into details about that, but he is making some great progress. The super late model that they have scanned from Clint Boyer's team is going along really well, and he did mention somewhere in there that he thinks that they are getting very close to being done with it. And he also talks about that when the car goes up for sale, there will be 3 versions of it, and the big change that you'll notice between the 3 versions is going to be the engine. So there will be a super late model, which is going to be the most horsepower one, a limited late model, which will be a little bit less scaled on that horsepower, basically, and then a late model stock, which will probably be the easiest one to drive, I would imagine. And so we'll get 3 of those. He did not mention anywhere from what I saw, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but he does not say if those 3 cars will be able to be purchased together for one price, or if they will be separate 3 prices each. I told Trevor earlier that I kind of would think that it would be included into one, but then again, we had to buy our three cup cars and our three nationwide cars and the two trucks separately, and they are practically the same.
Yeah,
But
so
that also has to do with licensing with Ford, Chevy, and Toyota. So who knows?
yeah, I mean, we do have, we did have to purchase the late model. Well, we did, didn't we? The late model and the super
Yes.
late model. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So I would,
That
yeah,
was because though that they came out at way different times.
true. So maybe they'll do something different. I mean, every car, if you've been around iRacing for a while, you know this, but those new, I mean, every car has always been the same price. The tracks vary because of size
Yeah.
and development time and whatnot, but the cars are always $11.95. So maybe they'll do something slightly different where and I'm just throwing this off the top of my head. Maybe it'll be
Yeah.
$14.95 and you get all three cars as a package or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see. Although, the picture that they got there, man, that thing looks pretty.
Yes. It's going to be a fun car to drive. I promise you guys. I'm looking forward to it. Like, oh my gosh, I love dirt racing. Anyways, two other things I mentioned that I noticed also in this section of the dirt that I love. He does mention that there is very likely, and well, he phrases it, it looks like we will be creating a version 7 of the tire model. Currently, we're on 6, obviously. But he does say to prepare yourself for the, oh dear, this car is going to be different, and this would affect every car. It's not just like we're going to throw it on the dirt ones and all the asphalt cars are going to be different. So this would be a V7. And another thing that he mentioned to go along with that is, believe it or not, working on this dirt project has helped them immensely with asphalt racing on the sim, which to me makes sense, but to some of you may not make sense. And the reason why it makes sense to me is because they are really having to study how cars interact with dirt and how the dirt changes and how the rubber builds up on the dirt and how the track changes during a dirt race. And as a result, I personally and I've been around dirt my whole life, so I mean I'm not like an expert in dirt, but I know more about it really than asphalt. And I can see how that would help their asphalt when it comes to making the way that the tires interact with the asphalt surface and the way the track changes. I can see how that would help it. So those of you that are like, man, I don't care about dirt. I really want my asphalt to be better. You should probably care about dirt because it's helping.
Well, I mean, we talked about that too, and we did the Dirt Confirm stuff as well, and the fact that, they kind of do tie, even though they're very different, they do tie
Yeah.
to each other with the dynamic track that they did and the heating of the track and learning how to do all that with the pavement. That tied directly into the dirt project as well. So it makes sense that, it's kind of a two-way street that they'll, kind of
Yes.
help each other in development. So,
Yes. And then the other thing I will mention before I'll let Trevor mention some of the other things that are cool, and this makes me happy, as I'm sure it will be making a lot of you happy. Another topic that Steve hears a lot is, quote, when are we going to build a winged dirt sprint car? Which is obviously one of the most popular and famous cars on the dirt side. He says, well, you'll be happy to know that we are sending poor Kevin Lenarli, or Lenarli. Sorry,
Lenarli.
Lenarli. I was close.
Anyways, that's how well, actually, no, that's an I because it's a cat. So that's
oh, yeah, it is
Lenarli.
Lenarli. Yeah, sorry, I didn't realize that.
Sorry, Kevin. We're so sorry.
Yeah, I didn't.
Blame
I did
Steve.
not realize. I didn't realize that wasn't an L. So Kevin is going on the road, and he says next week, and this will be at the time of this recording next week, so like the week of July the 4th, to work on scanning a winged dirt car. So that is exciting, and those things are fun to drive. Like, I've raced other dirt racing games in the past, and obviously those games are not even going to compare, I feel like, to what iRacing will put out for us. But just knowing, like, just getting a ballpark idea of what wing sprint cars and what super late models on dirt run, drive like. And like I have a friend where I live who drives super late models on dirt, and I've actually gone and watched him like actually a few weeks ago, but just in several times. And he drives this stuff. And so like I talk to him all the time about these cars, and it's one of those things where I just knowing what it was like on those games and knowing how much fun it was to drive, and it was just a game, and knowing that this is a sim and iRacing is going to try to model it as accurately as possible, I cannot wait to drive this stuff. It's going to be so much fun.
It is. It's definitely going to be very, very cool to have to get our. I mean, like I said, I mean, if you're going to have dirt racing, you got to have that car. I mean, that is your flagship when it comes to dirt racing. So that is going to be super cool. I mean, it's going to be super cool, and I mean, the visibility on those things is not great, and the way they handle the air is obviously very different because of the huge airplane on top of them. So it's going to be interesting to see how it drives and how much different it is. I mean, while we're still already learning how to drive on dirt as it is. So,
oh yeah.
Sticking with the dirt for just a short last moment, I think. One last thing they mentioned was that they're likely going to create a dirt surface version of one of our base content ovals. I'm just going to read directly here. Most likely USA Speedway, which is thumbs up for me because you know how much I love that track. So I can't wait to see that. So that there will be a dirt track in our base package. I know this breaks our norm when it comes to quote-unquote authentic content, but at the end of the day, the track doesn't exist anymore in real life. So just imagine we dumped 500 tons of dirt on it to make this real. So, I mean, it's, like I said, the track doesn't really exist anymore, so it's probably got a lot of not racing dirt, but it's probably just dirt and grass anyway, so I guess it doesn't really matter that much. But
yeah. Well, and one other thing that we'll mention about the dirt thing too is the Ford Fiesta GRC car. They're making fantastic progress on it as well. In fact, on the physics side of it, they've already modeled a handbrake, which is pretty cool. And he does talk about tracks for it. They will initially be building iRacing rallycross tracks on existing tracks using a fun track layout that rarely gets used. And he says, in his opinion, one of the great things about rallycross, at least here in the States, is that courses can be constructed just about anywhere and are often extremely unique on repeat visits to a facility. So it's not really one of the, that kind of like what he just said with Trevor Red, where this breaks our norm. This isn't really this is a different beast here because they really are just kind of configured almost at random, if you will. There are a few, that I think are the same mostly, but I can't wait to see what they do, and which tracks they use, to pull that off. So I'm also looking forward to this because that rallycross racing is a blast. Like when I've done it in the dirt series, I've never really followed it so far as watching it, but like just doing it, the dirt games, dirt 1, 2, and 3, doing that over there, and against sometimes against people online, but pretty much always doing it against the computer and turning them to like ridiculously hard was always fun. And it's just a unique racing, jumping the car over these huge mounds and trying to battle like you would do on a short track, your Saturday night local short track, but yet suddenly you got to fly 100 feet in the air or something.
Yes, that
it's
is
fun, man.
Well, you know what I mean, and any time that we can get a different aspect of racing into what we have with the the tracks and the and the cars and the realistic the realism here, hey, I'm all for it because I've never really had much fun with arcadey type of racing games myself. So I certainly haven't stuck with them like I have with this thing. I mean, like I said, I've been, like we mentioned at the top, 12 years this thing has been kind of around. So
yeah.
That's a long time.
It is.
Well, 12 years since they've been working on, since iRacing has existed. But, and then it came out, so it came out 8 years ago, I think. Anyway,
correct.
Math, it's hard.
But you did it right.
Let's see. So Le Mans is coming along, and they are working very, very hard to get it in for the September build, as he has mentioned here. So As he mentions, it's created a bunch of very tired artists at iRacing, and there was one line here that actually caught my eye, and he says, if you can believe it, and I don't, but Steve said so, so...
It has to be true.
If you can believe it, this track is actually a more difficult project from a management and art perspective than the Nordschleife. So that's like, I mean, in my mind, I mean, getting the Nürburgring in there like that had to have been the biggest project anybody's ever going to do when it comes to modeling a racetrack into a sim, or onto something on your computer. But apparently, Le Mans has more asset creation, I guess, when it comes down to creating the graphics around the track. So that's quite surprising.
Mm-hmm.
But looks like they're. I don't. It says they're trying hard. It doesn't say that they're on track to meet September, but it does say they're working hard to make sure they do. So, so I guess it is hopefully going to be out by September.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Let's see what else is in here. There was some other stuff there, which I don't really know what that's all about. Oh, here we go. Also, they are looking at, we've talked about it before, and we talked about when Tony was on the show, about their new UI, where, you're not really going to spend a lot of time on the website. It's just going to be loading up as if it was a regular quote-unquote game, and you're going to be doing all your stuff from inside of the UI itself. They're planning to put in phase 1 of the new UI by the end of the year. It will be a beta version of the UI, so kind of like what they did with the DirectX 11 rollout. It sounds like they're going to do it in a here you go, but it might break things horribly and set your house on fire, so it's not being forced out yet. Let's see how it goes when we release it into the wild, sort of thing. So that is going to be rolled out hopefully by the end of the year is what they're hoping for. It seems to be taking longer for them than we thought it would, because we kind of thought we'd be already there by now, but now they're saying end of the year. But there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, as he says, with this project, and it'll be a fundamental change in technology, which obviously we all know that it's a big change as to how the sim works and how you interface with it. So, of course, it's a big change, and it's probably turned into a bigger project than they may have initially thought.
Yes.
Let's see. And they will be able to, they're planning on launching with the new UI technology, their time attack competition, which we've talked about that in the past. We will do a more in-depth preview of this new racing mode when it gets closer to completion, but the basic idea is to create a competition for the hot lappers out there, like GPL rank. Actually, I'll just keep reading the rest of this. He says, essentially, we will create sessions for each car with a specific track list. Seasons, thank you. Create seasons for each car with a specific track list that enables you to run any track at any time in that season and set a time. Your best time in that season for each track will roll up into a cumulative time total that will rank you against all other sim racers in that season, not session. With this new feature, as he puts it, Gregor Hutu will have yet another way to embarrass us all.
Which is funny. Because it's so true.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've never been a good hot lapper regardless. I mean, it's one of those things where people will... we'll go on and do a, it's like, oh, okay, are you hot lapping or is that race pace? It's like, I don't even know how to hot lap. I just race as good as I can, and it is what it is, So,
mm-hmm. So, one of the other things that he talks about that is a bit of a bummer, but here goes. Time of day transitions, aka day to night. Yes, it's still on the list of things to do. No, it's not going to be done in time for the release of Le Mans. And then he says Rome wasn't built in a day. People, the poor graphics engineers are just tidying up the DX11, which I think overall they've done a pretty fantastic job. I'm personally saying that. Steve then says, which they did a fantastic job, essentially replacing our entire graphics engine which is hard and things can go really bad. But they have gone smoothly for the most part. But he does say they are just finally getting to a point where they can actually start developing on this platform, so please be patient. So what that tells me, as I was telling Trevor before the show, is they basically haven't even started that.
Yeah.
But yet they have, like they know it's there and they know they're doing things like DX11 is a huge thing. So when I say they haven't started on it, it's not like they haven't started individually working on the time of day, but they've done a lot of things to prepare them for it. But I'm still sad.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of hoping that we would have that sooner than later, but oh well. It's coming. It'll be there eventually, and all the other groundwork is going to kind of play into it. So, let's see. And I think there's just a couple more things to mention. One is that they're working on animation models to make the driver and the crew that's hanging out by the war wagon move a little bit, more fluidly, as we now have Lollipop Guy. Ooh. Speaking of which, and I don't think I even noticed this, or because when they released the new Lollipop Guy and his new animation, and they made the video of him kind of moving around with the stick and whatnot, I realized the other day, because I actually stopped short in my pit, and he actually waves you forward.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, he actually takes one hand and tells you to move forward, waves you in if you stop short in your pit box. Because I did that the other day. It's like, whoa, I didn't even know that was in there. So that's pretty cool.
I didn't either. That's pretty cool.
So anyway, they're going to take some of that technology and move it into making the driver animate more naturally, and the guys in the war wagon, rather than just being cardboard cutouts hanging out by your war wagon in your uniform, they're apparently going to move around, and I don't know. They're not going to come service your car. They're going to hang out there, and they're going to probably...
They're going to stand there and look at you like, what are you doing?
Well, I mean, and they would be missing a golden opportunity if at some point in time, if they didn't randomize it, where if one time you came in for your pit stop and they're all sitting there eating ice cream.
Yep.
Yep. So
first thought that went through my head.
So they have to. I mean, he even says in there. He says, I'm sure the art department will find some interesting ways to plant some Easter eggs as well, which I'll look forward to you finding. So if they don't have it where you just come in and because they're not going to jump over to your car because we don't have the animated pit crew, so that would be perfect. And in case you don't know what we're talking about, go back and watch Days of Thunder. Just don't expect it to be a realistic racing movie, but it's still kind of... I haven't watched it in a long time. I should go back and watch it and see how bad it is now that I'm way more into racing than I was the last time I watched it. So it'll probably make me cringe even more now.
Yep.
But anyway, that is... and then the last thing was, and I quote, and finally, to the guy who just can't live without flags blowing in the wind, you can stop beating that drum. We're working on it. So we're going to have flags blowing about in the wind, hopefully in the right direction compared to, we have the dynamic weather with the wind changing and all that good stuff. Hopefully they're not just blowing in the wind, they're blowing in the actual wind. So hopefully that, that'll be that. But anyway, so not a lot we didn't really know about, I don't think, in that blog post, but just some clarifications and a little bit narrowing down of some timelines and stuff. So, and always a good read. Steve's a good writer. He makes it doesn't come across as dry PR speak or dry engineer speak. He has a very human way of writing, which I always enjoy reading his blog posts because they just flow nice. They're easy reads, man. It's fun.
They are.
So anyway. There will be a link in the show notes if you want to go read that yourself, or just go to the iRacing, your members page, and it's like right there, smack dab underneath those promo codes. So check it out and have a read and take a look at some of the pictures and that gorgeous dirt late model that they have there, which looks super pretty. So I guess let's move into just touch briefly on the license classes because it kind of ties into what we were just talking about there. So do you want to take it away while I take a sip of my Slurpee that my lovely wife had delivered to me?
Yeah, so Tony Gardner posted in the forums that they are planning on adding new license types, as we've kind of talked about before on the show, especially when Dirt Confirmed came out. And that is going to be Dirt Oval and Dirt Road. However,
However,
the actual initial in-sim feature of dirt racing may finish before we get all the work done on the web and data side to have the new licenses ready. Which means that you might be on your current license right at the beginning. He says the last thing we want to do is roll out the new feature, but have the web and data side be clumsy and slow just because of the licensing. We need to change a significant chunk of web code to do this properly. That is just the way that things look now, but things can change just as quickly as they can be taken away as the project moves along. I ad-libbed that. There is a backlog of web work right now, even though we just hired two more actually, web engineers. Hopefully they get up to speed quickly. We're all looking at you. Rather than wait and be sitting on a completed feature for possibly months, in this scenario, we could probably roll dirt racing out under the existing license for Oval and Road, as I mentioned. But then we will have the new license a couple or a few months later reset under those. That way people could also quote dirt race and host it sooner rather than later. Now, however, some important things to note here. That he says, excuse me, they would have adjusted incident points for dirt racing for the initial feature release. In fact, with the work we are doing, we would be able to apply different incident points to any series in theory, for example, low, medium, and high. For the record, we plan on keeping our standard pavement series on high. We could have something like this below, just placeholders at this point. You could use these settings in hosted sessions as well. What we can't do is change the overall incident/contact system and the way that it works, so save those thoughts for another time or form. That is a whole different thing. This is just some flexibility in the incident points because dirt racing is obviously much different. So the full incident points is the current existing way it works. Intended use would be for the standard Oval series on pavement and in hosted rooms.
official
Like
series, not Oval, official.
My bad. That's what I meant.
Seasons,
I'm
sessions.
just like you. Season sessions, official Oval. So light contact with another driver is, of course, a zero contact. Right now, wheels off the racing surface is a 1x. Loss of control is a 2. Contact with other objects, walls, and it says etc.
Yeah, well, I guess.
You hit people?
Yeah, I mean, what else do you hit that isn't another car?
I guess.
It's the wall or
Other objects.
a different
So
type of wall.
I guess the car would be a count, though. Like a hard con. Well, but it says heavy contact with another driver, 4x. So I don't know. But anyways, contact with objects, 2x, and then heavy contact with a driver, 4x. So that's the current existing way that we have this, and that's the big one. Now, the medium incident points, which would be a possible intended use on dirt racing and special events and hosted, would be light contact with another driver, 0x, wheels off the racing surface, which cracks me up because you're already technically off-road. But I get what they're saying because it's racing surface. So it's like, this is the intended part of the track where you're supposed to be. But it's still funny because it's dirt.
Well, true, but then again, the other side, I mean, like the track, like the racing surface kind of evolves a little bit over the course of the race because, mud's being, splattered about. So you might, where do you draw the line? Is it where is it a hard line where it technically is, or does the track migrate slightly lower as you get some dirt pushed down there? Maybe, I don't know. But they'll probably just say this is the track surface, full stop. But if you can't even see where the the track stops and the infield starts, then that might be a bit of a tough one.
Yeah, so but anyways, so wheels off the racing surface would be a 1x. Loss of control, 0.
I like that.
Which, okay, so here's the thing. Those of you that have never done anything dirt racing, which I don't know how you couldn't have, but you're like sideways in the turn.
Uh-huh.
So I could see, because you are technically out of control because
Oh.
you're sideways,
You're technically
why,
always out of control.
yeah, why they would take this away. But at the same time, what if people are just like constantly spinning? It's like that to me is a loss of control. So like, I mean, like it's a whole another, like those of you that have never played a racing game with dirt racing, or you've never done it in real life, like you are literally like sliding through the turns. And I know everybody knows that, but it's like, I don't know how I feel about that one. But this is the medium incident point thing, so maybe it's more forgiving. But contact with another object, like a wall, for example, would only be a 1x, which is down from the full on, which is a 2x. And then heavy contact with another driver remains at 4. So they're still penalizing you for making contact. The low incident points, which would be used in special events and select official fun series, possibly and hosted. Light contact with another driver, 0x. Wheels off the racing surface, 1x. Loss of control, 1x, because we're not dealing with dirt racing supposedly here. Contact with other objects like walls would be a 1x. And then, interesting enough, heavy contact with another driver goes down to a 3x.
So, anyway, the end result is they're looking at it and they have a partial potential maybe plan, I guess,
Yes.
and none of this is actually, etched in stone in any way, shape, or form. It's just kind of a here's what we're thinking sort of
Exactly.
thing. But good to know that they're, I hadn't even thought about that actually. Like I thought, okay, have a separate license. Yes, that makes sense because it's a completely different style of racing. But I didn't even think of modifying the way incident points, are given to you based on the style of racing. So it's good to know that they're thinking about that as well. Because, like you said, I mean, like you said, maybe loss of control, maybe it stays as a 2x, but if and again, I don't know if they could, but instead of right now, you get that if you go past 90, I think, from the plane that you're supposed to be going, or is it 180? I'm not sure. I can't remember when you actually get that 2x pop up, but if
I don't know either.
maybe if they adjusted it from instead of you have to go this far, maybe it's they give you some more leeway and you can be 270 degrees off of your intended path before they give you the loss of control. So that way you still get dinged for completely spinning out. So I don't know, but I guess the end result is that yes, we'll have separate licenses is kind of the takeaway from this. We will put a link in the show notes so you can go check out that one. That one might be a little harder to find just because sometimes, it can be hard to locate forum posts and stuff. The other stuff is pretty easy. Forum posts, you might want to stop by the site so you can get the direct links so you can go and find it. Because, spoiler alert, the search engine in the forums on iRacing is not very good. So finding stuff in there can be real tough sometimes.
Yep.
So you can have a read of that. Anyway, a few more things to go over here. Let's see. Just one thing that I want to mention that I discovered, and this may be me being stupid and not realizing it, but since I discovered it, I wanted to push it on to you guys. The Z1 dashboard. They do a lot of updates throughout the year. I believe they do 4 major updates throughout the course of a year. It's either 4 or 3. I can't remember. I read about it the other day. But the way it works is you buy it, and then you have free updates for a month after you purchase it, and then it becomes a new product after that. So you have a subscription model where you give them $2 a month or whatever it is, and you get all the updated versions of the software as they come out. But the version that I have of the Z1 dashboard was kind of the last version before things got super duper cool. When it was just the dashboard. since then, they've added in the Z1 server and the Z1 analyzer. The analyzer does a whole bunch of stuff with telemetry and showing your driving line and your braking points and your throttles on tracks, and it has, track walk stuff, and it has a bunch of things that I thought would be super cool to have. And I believe in this latest version, they've even added where you can sync it up with a replay, so you can actually watch the telemetry and your braking points and stuff while actually watching what's happening in the sim. So you can kind of say, okay, well, I broke a little bit earlier in this corner because I lost some time here, and this is what it looked like from the cockpit. So that could be super useful. And the server is something that would be very convenient as well, because it allows you to run the server on your actual sim computer and then actually have the dashboard on a separate computer. So for instance, if you had a separate laptop, or whatever, you could have that actually running separately. So if you're on triple screens, you don't want to take up some of that real estate with the dashboard, you could have it sitting there on a separate computer, Anyway, I say all that because I have the version that only has the dashboard, and it is a $24.99 product. And I thought, because I wanted to get these extra features, and I thought, well, I'm willing to buy it again, because that's kind of what I have to do in order to get to, the updated version with all this extra stuff, because I really get some use out of that extra stuff, because it can be a very useful tool. Turns out that if you have purchased it while you haven't had the updates, you can actually upgrade to any version, and you'd always upgrade to the latest version for only $14. So I don't actually have to buy it again. I can actually only just pay a $14 upgrade fee, and that will get me up to the latest version rather than spending the entire amount to buy it again. So anyway, I discovered that because I was looking into that the other day. So in case you are like me and have an older version of the dashboard and you want some of these new and great features, there is a cheaper path than spending the entire $25 to get up there. Save yourself $11 and only do it for $14. So, excuse me. Just wanted to mention that out there. And of course, Z1 Dashboard is over at z1simwheel.com. And you can check out all that cool stuff. We've talked about a bunch on the show and stuff. Chad and I use it, so it can be really useful. Mostly I use it for fuel calculations because math is hard at 180 miles an hour. So
it is.
So I like it telling me, hey, here's how much fuel you need to put in your car in order to make it to the end of the race, so I can plan my strategy when I don't have a crew chief helping me do that sort of stuff. So it becomes very helpful. So I'm going to upgrade that and get that to the latest version so I can check out some of these really cool new features, especially on the analyzer. I want to really dig into that as well. So I will report moving forward on a future show. I'll report how that all works out for me once I do the upgrade and get that all installed and start using it. So I just wanted to bring that up. And now lastly, we have the email and we have our experiences, Mr. Chad. How do you want to close out the show?
Well, I think I'll start with this email from Eric. So I shall read the email, and then we shall discuss. He says, "Hey guys, my personal banking account is..." No, I'm just kidding. That was a joke. Laugh.
Oh, I snickered, but it did not was not picked up on the audio, and you can't see me in the video.
It.
I know.
Yeah. So ruined. Anyway, so he says, "Hey guys, I've been listening to the show for a year now and never missed an episode."
Boom.
Wow.
Mic
dedication.
Drop.
Leave stage. During this time, he's been racing 2 to 3 races per week, and over this time, he's become more consistent and found speed. Yay! His best cars are the Model 5s, the SK and the Tour specifically. Fantastic cards. And did I say cards? Because I totally meant cars.
You kind of did, yeah.
I'm sorry. And he says, and I've actually found the most success in the Tour Modified. That seriously is one of my favorite cars on the sim that I haven't driven in a long time. That's a side note for me. Back to him. He says, I'm still decent in the late model and the super late model, and I'm trying to figure out the street stock. In quotes, not in quotes, but in parentheses. It is easy to drive, but hard to drive very fast. Agreed. Yeah, he says, I remember hearing you guys say that you met while running the Tour Mod races. Yes. Technically true.
Wow. Yes, that happened. You sound so excited.
Mic drop. I know.
Yep, that's where we met. Boom.
At that point. I went from being a cool guy on iRacing to doing this. But anyways, back to him. And both of you guys are former short track ringers. Well, one of us is anyways.
Well, yeah, that's half right. I'm a guy who tried not to get in the way.
This email is, I've just made this funny. Anyways, but former short track ringers and have moved on to other series, hence why I thought I'd run the question by you. I feel very comfortable and am in fast at short tracks with higher braking zones like a Martinsville, USA, South Boston, etc. Oxford. However,
Boo.
on intermediate tracks, and then he says including Iowa, Phoenix, Dover, Rockingham, Gateway, Charlotte, etc. He can't find speed and is almost a second off the pace of the fastest drivers. Usually the only way he gets higher finishes is via attrition. He's watched YouTube replays in the sim during practice of the fastest drivers in there and watched their lines and attempted to obviously duplicate them. Even with the same line and sometimes even the same setup, usually running fixed setup if in the NASCAR or the street stock races that he does, using the same braking and throttle points, he cannot find the speed. He says, I feel like one of my weaknesses is carrying momentum on these tracks, which is very important on these tracks, by the way, as there isn't much braking involved. That's why it's important. I recognize carrying momentum into and out of the corners is critical. That's what I just said. I tried to be smooth and tried to flow through the corners, but I get tight and lose speed. I hate tightness. It should not exist. It should be loose or nothing.
No,
Yes.
you need tight to keep you grounded, man. If you're too loose, then it's just you can't touch the throttle. I mean, that's my problem. Yeah.
But that's why dirt track racing is awesome. He does say, how can I make the transition to these larger tracks and find more success? He says, I feel like I've shown I can compete in at least one nick of the sim and want to be competitive on some of these bigger tracks, obviously. So he can carry
and by
on.
nick, you mean niche?
Sorry. So I can carry into other series and get his iRating up and be like Chad. And then this is my favorite part of the email. And be like Chad, period. And Trevor and stuff and more boom confetti.
More boom confetti.
But it's almost like he's like, and I want to be like Chad. Oh, and I should be nice to Trevor too.
And the other guy.
I love that. So basically the gist of the email is he's trying to figure out how to get faster on some of the 1.5 miles and the 2 miles and 2.5 mile tracks. Where it is not heavy brake zone stuff. Now, I told Trevor before the show that I find it interesting that he included tracks like Iowa, Phoenix, Dover, Rockingham, well, just those. Because to me, I drive Phoenix and Dover, and the few times I've been to Rockingham, and then New Hampshire is another one I include, as a short track. Especially New Hampshire because it has big time braking zones. So I'm imagining he left that off intentionally because of that. But tracks like Dover, I drive like Bristol almost. And Phoenix, I drive similar to the way that I drive a New Hampshire or a Martinsville. Iowa, I drive very similar to the way that I drive Richmond, except it's usually in one lane higher. Because Iowa's more of an outside lane track, whereas at least on the sim, because that's not the way it is in real life anymore. Richmond is more of a bottom feeder track.
Bottom feeder.
Yes. So, I hope that I find the words to put this in that will make sense and be helpful. Because I'm not good at explaining things, I feel like. But for me, I know that when I was going, like, he mentions, former short track ringers. So like when I started on the sim, my process, I spent at least a year, maybe even a little bit longer than that, in the late model. Like we didn't have the super late model then, so it was only the late model. So I'm running tracks like USA, like South Boston, like Lanier. And obviously for those of you that are road racing people, this may not particularly fit you, because we're talking oval stuff here. So please fast forward. But I know, like I feel Eric on this because it's not that I necessarily struggled like horribly, but like I did struggle with that transition, going from all these little, 3/8 mile, 4/8, whatever, half mile, 3/4 tracks. And like there were certain ones that I did a lot better at on the short track side than other ones, but it was a struggle when you're basically on a straightaway for like 2 seconds and then like suddenly you're on really hard brakes. I mean, that's a slight exaggeration. And then you go to a track like an Atlanta where you're on the throttle a lot and you're not even really touching the brake pedal. Tricky. So here's the thing that goes through my mind and what I had to not so much force myself, but actually, as strange as this is going to sound, what I learned on short tracks, I actually applied to intermediate tracks. And that is, but it's a little bit different in the sense that he mentions higher braking zones like a Martinsville and stuff like that. And I mean, you guys know you're on the brakes pretty hard, especially in more horsepower cars there. And so for me, what I would do on short tracks is I would always try to set up the center of the turn. Like to me, the center of the turn is the most important turn, part of the turn, sorry. And that doesn't mean that the entry and the exits aren't, because they are. But however, it is a, I just find that if you get, like your entry is important because it sets up your center, duh. But like I feel like if you get through the center, you are going to automatically nail just about every time the exit. And so your exit becomes super easy when you nail the center. And I feel like if you nail the center, then that means you nailed your entry. And then obviously you're nailing all three of them if you're doing that. So like I've always stressed, and this is just me, it doesn't mean that it's the correct way of doing things. So some of you may disagree and think, wow, you're a horrible person. But I think that the center part of the turn is the most important. And in open setups, I always tried to set up my car to where it would almost drive itself in the center. Like if I did what I'm supposed to do on the entry, it would just rotate through the center and then I could just floor it and get out on the exit of the turn and come away with a good turn. Eric mentions momentum and how it is very important. And I think it's extremely important, like in the trucks and maybe even the Xfinity cars. I haven't driven those as much lately, so I can't totally comment on it, but I do think it still applies on the sim. I know in real life, those cars are all about momentum.
Right.
And but like the trucks, I know that when I was racing them, man, it was a momentum thing. Like, I mean, just the whole time, it was like if you barely screwed up coming out of the turn, your straightaway speed was killed and everybody's passing you. And so momentum is a huge thing. And I don't know how to put into words how you keep it up, except that you, like if you're doing fixed setup racing, it's more difficult because then you can adjust the car to fit the way you drive, and you have to change the way you drive to adjust to the car. And it's like if, let's say if you're tight in the center, then what I would try to do is maybe back up your entry just a tiny bit more and try to get more arc in it. I mean, not like a lot, but just, just a little bit more to where maybe the car will react better in the center and you can get back in the throttle better, to continue to get that good exit. If you're really loose, then you probably want to wait to get on the throttle just a hair longer in the center.
Yeah.
Because you're going to spin. But momentum is very tricky, like, and it goes both ways. Like, I was kind of making a joke a little while ago about where I said they need to get rid of tight and just always be loose. But that's because I like being loose. But there is such a thing in my dictionary, and some of you might be floored by this, as too loose. Because
Never.
yeah, no. Because in a race like the trucks, where it's so momentum based, if you are experiencing too much looseness and you have to breathe that throttle an extra hair or an extra second, that kills you. I mean, so like your setup really has to be perfect, but it has to be perfect for your driving style. What works perfectly for Ray Alfala doesn't necessarily work perfectly for Trevor Cameron or Chad Dalton.
Hmm.
So it changes based on your setup, and if and fixed obviously really limits you. So as I said, the thing that I really work on is the center of the turn. Like that has been the thing throughout my entire iRacing career that I focus on, whether it's short tracks or the big tracks. Like I work on figuring out how the entry will work well enough that I'm rolling into the center and I'm not pushing up tight and I'm not necessarily, getting really loose. I mean, obviously sometimes you have moments where you get a little tighter, you get a little loose, but generally I work on an entry at all these tracks, and it comes down to arcing correctly, I guess, that allows your car to do a lot of the work for you. Like I really try to drive where the car is actually doing the work and I'm not, as strange as that sounds. And basically just try to arc it to where the car will roll the center, because with me, I found that if I get through the center of a turn, my exit is easy because I just floor it. I'm just like right as I get to the center, I am 100% throttle and, out of it, getting out of the turn, 100% throttle. And now there might be a few occasions where the car doesn't react the way I need it to, so I might have to breathe the throttle or something unless I'm in the Indy car, and then, you die if you do that. But that's kind of the way I drive. And I found over time that just focusing on making the center the most important part of the track helped my entry and helped my exit, and it improved my speed because I was so focused on getting through the center. And like that is no joke. That's like the secret to me. Like that's how I race, is focus on the center. I hope that that makes sense in the way that maybe it will help Eric and anybody else listening out. But momentum is very, 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 very tricky, and I don't think in the Cup car it's as important personally. I mean, yeah, you need to keep your momentum up, but I mean there's a lot of horsepower in that car, so you can kind of, I mean, you can afford slight mistakes better in that car compared to the truck. Whereas, like, I feel like the truck, you just have to be like perfect all the time, which I know is impossible, but that's just what it feels like because it's very tricky to keep your momentum up, and you like pretty much never use the brake in the truck. Whereas the Cup car, at a lot of tracks, you at least tap it or kind of stab it, like quickly to just kind of set the nose and make sure that everything, isn't going to go flying up the racetrack. But other than
Stab the
that,
brake.
yeah.
That seems
Other
so
than that,
violent.
it's what?
Seems so violent. You gotta
Well,
stab the brake. Did you break a shoe?
I mean quickly. And but what was I saying? But then I guess in a way the Cup car, I've actually kind of found the Cup car to be the easiest of the three to drive, to be honest, because it almost kind of does its own thing. Like it's got so much horsepower that you just kind of throw it into the corner and it's like, whee, and you just react to it almost, I guess. But so I don't know if that helps or not. I don't even know if that makes sense. I don't know if Eric's going to become the best driver ever now or not, but that's just kind of how I felt like I have worked my way up from the short track stuff to being on the intermediate package. And there for a while, I will say this, and I'm not bragging, I'm not being selfish, but there for a while, mile and a half, when I was running things like the R0 Pro Cup Series, the mile and a half tracks were like my best tracks. Like, I mean, the short tracks were, my best too. Like, I ran really well at Bristol's and Martinsville's, but and Richmond's. But the mile and a half program, I mean, that was a fixed setup series, but like I was always up front. And like somebody actually told me in one of the races one day, I don't know if I streamed it or not, or if it may have not even been during the race and during a stream, somebody actually told me, he was like, dude, you're a really good amount of halves. And I was like, well, that's nice to know because I don't feel like I am.
You're like, yeah, I am.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like what I'm doing is working. Now, Doesn't mean it's the best way.
Fair enough. And that gives, like I am the and Trevor and stuff, so I really have nothing to add to anything Chad has said. The only thing that I found moving from short track to the larger tracks was, for me, it was just a pure comfort level thing where I just enjoyed having more space because I'm not the best driver out there. So on a short track, you're out there at a, Oxford, Lanier, South Boston, stuff like that. You're around traffic all the time, and being on the mile and a half gave me space to figure out my line as opposed to going, oh no, that guy's past me. Oh, somebody's coming up behind me. Oh, here comes Jeremy Davis. Oh, here's John Michael. And so it was, for me, just comfort level. And I'm not really super great on those tracks either, but I think Chad has given you at least some information that perhaps will help Eric and maybe some others out there.
Well, and one thing that I'll add to it, I don't know if this has changed because it's been a while since I've been like consistently running short tracks. But I know that when I ran short tracks in the SD, the short track pro prep days and just in the official stuff, I always found that you were pretty much literally on the bottom, like all the time. And on these bigger tracks, I've found, like especially at Dover, it seems like, and Dover's one of my best tracks. Like I am dead serious. Like that track, I shine. And I've found that even moving your line like a foot can like make a difference. And even if it's only in your head, it still makes a difference. Like I know one time I went to Dover and I was running like right on the bottom and it was working. But I noticed that like the leader and maybe the second or the third or the fourth place car were just a smidge faster than me. And like I was doing this in the truck. And so I was like dead on the bottom. And then I decided, well, maybe I'll just move up a foot and kind of like let the car, like I'll enter right on the bottom and then I'll kind of drift up like a foot or two and then kind of go back to the bottom on the exit. And you're like, it's a mini arc, I guess. And as soon as I started doing that, and like I had never driven Dover like that, and I had had plenty of success not doing it like that. But as soon as I did that, I instantly became faster. I actually ended up winning that race. And then like a few days later was running the cup car in the same league at Dover and went back to that same line. And it was the same thing, like, just super quick, very consistent, good on the tires. And so like I've found that on bigger tracks, just moving just a little here or a little there has helped me in certain situations. And even if it's only in my head, who cares? It helped.
And the results are what matters. Who cares why?
Exactly.
But yeah, and that's something that I've always, that with tracks that you have to be, up top to be quick, I've always struggled with. That's one of the reasons why Darlington has always been a thorn in my side, because it's like, well, you gotta, go through this corner up against the wall. It's like, I can't. No matter what I've done through anything I've ever done learning about sim racing, I cannot run a high line without smashing the wall. So,
yeah.
That's where I struggle at a lot of those courses. That's like, no, the high line's the quicker because, you're getting all the momentum. It's like, yep, don't care. Don't get a lot of momentum when, the right side of your car is pancaked. So, yeah. So anyway, I think we can close that one out. I think that is a worthwhile discussion, and by discussion I mean, hey, Chad was, was throwing down some knowledge on y'all.
I love how yesterday I get this email and Trevor's like, yeah, so on that you're pretty much just going to handle that, and I'm just going to sit there and look pretty.
See, like, and it worked out great.
I know, but it was just funny. I was like, wow, thanks for being helpful.
I'm helpful because I created the show. See, that's my contribution, man.
That's your contribution.
I'm and stuff. Come on, it's Chad and stuff.
That's your new name. Forget I'm from the internet, and the internet. Wow, I need to quit. Forget it's okay. I'm from the internet. You're now and I'm stuff.
And other. I'm +1. So
You're the other in the checkbox column.
All right. Finally, we have some experiences. At least I know I do. I believe, Chad.
Yep,
Okay. I will start because you talked for a bunch there, and I ran my second race in the Verizon IndyCar Series, this time at Road America, which I mentioned, well, only a few days ago, because who knows when we record the show anymore? I don't even know. So I was really looking forward to Road America because, A, I love that track, and it's another fun track in the IndyCar. So unfortunately, I had waited because I hadn't, just life, hadn't got a chance. So I didn't actually get a chance to do a race until there were only a few races left. So beggars can't be choosers. I wish I had had more of an opportunity. So when I did get into a race, it was only 8 cars, but enough to go official, and that's all that matters because you still get points. Started out, and those 8 cars, I started in 6th, it would appear. Yes, 6th. I thought I should have started 7th, but one guy timed out and didn't take the start. So I ended up starting in 6th position. And, because with only a small amount of cars, we handled the first couple corners fine. But here, the way it worked out was I had one guy. Oh, and we talked about the incident count in the entry list that you could see. And I was kind of wondering, it's like, how does that all work out and what's the point? Because we can see the incidents afterwards and whatnot. Well, I discovered something that actually became very useful for me and probably saved me some incident points and a couple spots in this race, because I didn't qualify because it was such a short field. I knew my time wasn't going to be with where those guys were anyway, where they qualified, because I watched, I knew what my time was and I watched their times in practice. So it's like, nope, I'll just start at the back. But when it's only 8 cars, who cares? So I didn't qualify, but while I'm sitting there not qualifying, I have the entry list up, and it has that new column there where it has the incident points. And as I'm watching, the guy who would eventually start right beside me, or, just to the right and one row back, I watched his incident count while we were qualifying, and it started climbing. Throughout the 8-minute qualifying session, I just watched it go, it's like, okay, 0, okay, now it's 2, now it's 3, now it's 4, 6. And I'm watching this, it's like, and it got up to 13 in the qualifying session by the time the session ended. So I'm thinking to myself, I don't want this guy near me. So it did give me some insight into, well, there's a use for that incident point counter, because now I know that person is obviously struggling with their car control, is trying to go fast but overdriving the car probably, or something along those lines. So it's like, all right, well, put that in the memory bank. I don't want that guy around me because he's having some issues with the track and the car combination. So the race started. We kind of, got out to a nice easy start, and, everything was fine. I kind of just settled into my position in 6th. In 6th position, with this other driver was behind me. And he fell back a fair bit because he actually was a little bit really cautious on the start. He kind of fell back from the field because he was last, so he could kind of give some room. He obviously knew he was struggling with car control, so he wanted to give room. So that was great. So he was a fair bit back, maybe like a second and a half, something like that. So we're going. I'm just kind of getting into my groove. Everything's great. Passed a couple people early because they spun out on the first couple laps, and then I noticed this guy. He's now catching up to me, and I'm watching him catch up to me. It's like, okay, well, he's got some speed, but I know he's not really that great, and I don't want this guy ahead of me. So, and another one of those transitions of, the way I used to drive to the way, I'm getting some more confidence, especially with this car. So I didn't block, but I drove defensively and didn't open up the door for this guy to kind of stick his nose in there, even though it looked like he was going to, try to stick his nose, and I was kind of afraid he was going to dive bomb me the way he was driving as I'm watching him on my mirror. So it's like, no, I'm not going to let this guy ahead of me because I know it's just going to lead to trouble, because he's going to get ahead of me, he's going to spin out, I'm going to smash into him, and my race is going to be over. So for probably about 2 laps, I drove pretty defensively. He was only a little bit faster than me, to kind of not let that pass happen. And lo and behold, went through one corner, can't remember which one it was, and there he goes fading off into the distance, and I don't have to deal with him for the rest of the day. So it was a smart, based on the information I had from the incident point count, and then a little bit of confidence in my car control skills. I knew to not let that guy by me, could drive not to let that guy by me. Then he spun out as I expected him to, and I didn't get caught up in it. So that worked out pretty good. As far as the rest of the race goes, it was fairly uneventful with only 8 cars, and a couple of them had actually crashed out at some point in time. So it was just kind of racing my line and just having fun. I mean, man, that combination is just so much fun. If it would be even better if I could get that breaking point right when you come out of not the hairpin, but the sharp left at the bottom of the hill. Then you go up the hill under the bridge thing there, and you make that left-hand turn. I can never get that right because your car is so unhappy at that point into the track because you're going uphill, you're kind of accelerating for only a short period of time. You just came out of that sharp turn, and then you kind of apply the brakes as you crest that hill, and your car kind of gets upset. And it's a real sharp turn, so yeah, it can be hard. I'd never gotten that quite right. But anyway, had a fun race. Had a couple little bobbles here and there. Nothing too big. I ended up with 6 incident points at the end of the 32 laps, and they were nothing contact. It was just a couple of wheels off the track. And but there was one cool thing, and this is what I was talking about at the top of the show, where I got to see the new model when it comes to debris and dirt and stuff on the track, and how that's dynamic now. Because I was coming into Canada Corner, and some reason I just got on the brakes just a little bit too hard, and just as I'm about to make the right-hand turn, the rear end came around on me. So I kind of nosed in towards the wall on the inside there, and that's grass and dirt over there. Didn't hit anything, no traffic around me, so everything was fine. Backed out, went along my merry way. And that was, halfway through the race, something like that. But now when I'm coming around the corner for the next time to hit Canada Corner again, I go into that corner, and there is this waft of just dirt spread out across the track from the point when I went off. Just and it just kind of, it's thick right by the actual edge, and then it just kind of dissipates across the track. And I drove across there. It's like I made that. Like that was my incident. Like I created this little clump of dirt out onto the track, and lap after lap, like it was funny. I almost got distracted because it was like that, like because it was so cool. Like it was so realistic to exactly what had happened. Like that is what the track should have looked like right there based on what I did. And it was so cool to me. And then it became even more distracting because as the laps went on, there was less and less of it on the track because we were driving over it and it was dissipating off the track and stuff. So by the point, by the end of the race, it was basically almost gone. But it was cool because every time I came around that corner, I kept looking. It's like, there's less now. Like it was such a cool moment that, I made this mess on the track. And through the other cars driving and me driving back through there, it's now almost gone. But it didn't, it wasn't just a texture put on a track that all of a sudden, okay, X equals Y, so put dirt texture on track. It was totally exactly my tire tracks across that, that point, and then it slowly disappeared for the rest of the race. So that was like a cool moment for me. That was it was just one of those moments of wow, I get it. This is so flippin' cool. And there was a couple other moments where, I'd get my wheels off in a couple of corners and, and hearing the dirt and the rocks at the bottom of the car as I go through there, and there's a little puff of smoke pops up behind me. It was just, or a dirt pops up behind me. It was just a lot of really cool little moments like that. So anyway, it didn't end up getting me distracted to the point where I, had a problem in the race, but it was, slightly distracting. And then getting towards the last couple laps of the race, there was a guy that was racing who was up in third. I spent some time in third. Me and first and second were in their own zip code, but third and fourth, a guy by the name of Nicholas Acosta, we were kind of changed third and fourth a couple times depending on the way the pit stops went because it's a 2-stop race. So I was in third for a bit, he was in third for a bit, and at the end of the race, he had gotten a really good pit stop out and had gotten a good gap on me. So he was like 18 seconds ahead of me, something like that. And so I'm just racing my race. I'm still racing hard because it's like, well, you never know. Because he had had a couple offs earlier, so it's like, well, maybe, if I can get close enough, I can force him into a mistake, get that third, spot and get up on the podium. But as the race was winding down, it's like, nope, I'm not going to catch him. Okay, whatever, no big deal. It's fine. And then all of a sudden, I noticed the split started coming down pretty good, but not quick enough to say that he was off the track. Like, it wasn't he stopped and now I'm catching him, but the gap shrunk and it shrunk and it shrunk, and by the end of the race, like, he was up ahead of me. Like, he was now in visual sight, and the last couple corners, like, I'm seeing him, and I had some push to passes left, and so I was getting closer, and then we came around the last corner, and he was, like, just as I came around the last corner, he was just starting going up the hill, hit the push to pass. Wasn't enough. Not sure what the gap was at the end, but it wasn't very much. So he gets on the mic afterwards. It's like, yeah, good racing with you, Trevor. It's like, man, I thought I had a shot at you. Like, you started coming right down at the very end there. It's like, and I thought I had a chance to catch you. And he says, yeah. He says, I had one incident point left to my name, so I had to play those last couple laps super cautiously to make sure. It's like, now it makes sense. Now I know what was happening. And I wish I'd known that, because then I would have pushed even further to kind of get up to him, because he finished the race with 16 incident points. So he had just got to the point from a couple incidents and then a couple of, tires off the track, on those last few laps that he was getting close to being DQ'd, so he slowed way down. It's like, oh man, I wish I'd known, because I would have pushed even harder and I might have caught him. But anyway, ended up being it was what it was. Only 8 cars showed up, but finished 4th, got 51 points, only 6 incident points. So again, a little bit of safety rating. Again, 2 weeks in a row, gained some iRating, so up to 1273 on that. So happy with that. And that put me, I think, at the end of the week in like 3rd in the division, 2nd or 3rd in the division for the overall points. And this week we're at Charlotte, so I got to get my oval on. Charlotte's a nice big track, so hopefully, I got to set up. I haven't had a chance to test it yet, but over the weekend I'm going to be running some laps there and see if I can get my oval skills to get me some more iRating and some points and make a run for this Division 6 championship. So, fun race. Man, that combination is fun, and the race. Like, I watched the real Indy cars were at Road America as well, and that was a fantastic race to watch. So it was like, yeah, this is a good track for these cars, and it was a fun race to watch. It was a fun race to do. So that was my week. I was out there and making sand castles on the track and marveling at my my ingenuity and my engineering of said sand castles.
Wow, that's interesting way to phrase that. But that is pretty cool to watch, though. Like what you were talking about there with the dirt building up and then going away. That's pretty freaking sweet.
Yeah, it was so realistic. Like, it was so, like, that is every time I came around that corner, I was just thinking, that's exactly what that should look like. Like, I made this. I did it.
30 windshields of the build.
But anyway, so what did you get up to?
Well, I did the Watkins Glen race with Danny, and unfortunately, it was cut short. Not because we wrecked, but because the car counts in that series, like, it's a new series, and the car counts have kind of been up and down. But unfortunately for Watkins Glen, they were way down, which, I gotta be honest, was really surprising because it's Watkins Glen. It's like the super speedway of the road course stuff, in a way. So we only had 6 cars in the field, and had Danny and I have known, that it was going to be like that, we would have just, had it to where Danny or I, one, would go pick a different team and join the race, and then, the other one do the other team, and we just do the full race length. But, on our own instead of being together. So Danny and I were the only two, excuse me, that were teamed up. And the race admins decided that because there was such a small field and it was a 2-hour race, that they would just go to 1 hour instead. And now I think they've even arrived at a decision where there's going to be one more race, I believe, in the middle of July, which I believe is the 18th. And then that's going to be it, I think, is what I read on the forums. So they're just kind of fading it out for now. I don't know if it'll come back or not, but it just hasn't taken off like they thought it would, which is sad.
It's unfortunate.
But I'm sorry, what?
I said it's unfortunate.
Yes, it is. So as a result, the race only ended up being an hour, which kind of like it really that like I mean I guess in a way it penalizes us anyways, but that really penalized Danny and I because of the fact that we were going to make the driver swap because we were the only team. That's like another 20 seconds that we're going to be in the pits or whatever, compared to everybody else because now you don't need as much fuel
Right.
in a 1 hour race. And they do use an 80% lock, so you're not running full fuel, but you're pretty close. And it also meant that the BMW was able to go the full hour. So I believe that Adam Hollick was the only person in the BMW, and he may have done some serious saving. I don't know. I haven't talked to Adam, but it could have just been, that he just saved a little, or it could just be that he went as hard as he could and it didn't matter. But he made it the full hour without pitting. But that doesn't really mean anything because he finished second. But he didn't, like, he was a long ways away from the leader. So, like, it didn't mean anything in the sense that, like, he was going to win the race by 4 hours is what I meant. Anyways, so Adam had from everything I saw, a very clean race and finished in second. Danny and I were actually up at the lead because I started the race and I think I qualified second. Yeah, I qualified second, just missing the pole. And so we actually competed for the lead for a while until we made the switch, and then we were like nowhere near the lead because we got penalized by that driver swap time and all that stuff. So that was a bummer. However, we still ended up finishing third. I'm not really going to talk about the race because there really wasn't anything that happened except on the very first lap. And that was when I almost ruined everything.
Everything. That's drastic.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I almost did. So basically, like I said, I started the race in second, and I was trying, like the leader, the guy that won the pole, and I know it's his right and whatever, but I hate when people do this. Please don't do this on the sim. But he won the pole, and he was hanging back like forever away from the pace car, and I kept trying to keep him, up towards the pace car. I mean, you don't have to be like right on the thing's rear bumper, but at least be within, a couple of car lengths of it, not like a mile behind it.
Right.
I hate that. I'm sorry. That is a pet peeve. I don't care who you are. I just cannot stand that. And anyways, so like I know that it's, it's his call and he's the leader, but I was trying to kind of like, come on. I was trying to like stay up there and like kind of force him to stay up there too. And so like he waited, and then he went on the green, which I think is the rule. Like you're supposed to go on the green, which I get, but like I was still kind of ahead of him because he was not up there, and I was trying to make him be up there. So I didn't get the greatest jump because I was, didn't want to get a black flag. And then as Danny mentions in the chat, I did something incredible that was also very, very stupid that could have killed everybody. So we're going up the S's, and I'm in third, and second's right in front of me, and the leader's basically right in front of him. And I wasn't even trying to pass anybody. Like, I swear, I wasn't.
I promise, man, I wasn't trying to do nothing.
I know. Like, all I was trying to do, and I posted a video of it on Twitter, so all of you guys can go watch it. Maybe Trevor can put a link in the show notes. But all I did was, like, I pulled out to the right because there was a car right in front of me, and the Audi's kind of bulky, and, like, I just wanted to make sure that I could see where I was going into the bus stop, so I make sure, I hit the brakes at an appropriate time, and I'm not suddenly surprised, when the guy in second hits the brakes and I go smash right into him. So I just moved to the right. Well, when I did, I caught the draft of the leader, which, as you guys know, when you're coming up the S's, you're gaining momentum and you're going down the straightaway, your car's picking up speed, and then you hit the draft and it's like, whee, all kinds of speed. And so I actually started like passing the second place car, not intentionally, but I just started doing it. And when he saw that, he
I'm
backed
doing
out.
it. I'm doing it.
What are you doing?
You passing the car. You said, I didn't mean
Oh,
to do it, but I'm just doing it. It's just happening. It's happening.
yeah, but like as soon as I started doing it, he hit the brakes and basically gave me the spot. So, which is cool, and like I realized it, and like everything was fine. However, when I was realizing what he was doing, the leader also started stopping for the turn. Now, this is coming to what, in my opinion, was like way too early. Like, I mean, I know that everybody brakes differently, and like I'm always been aware of that, but I was looking at it like, "Oh, wait a minute, we're not quite there yet." And it's like he starts slowing down, and I'm full throttle, and then I've got the draft, and I'm just like, okay, well, I'll take second because he's giving it to me. And now I'm realizing the leader's hitting the brakes, and as Danny said in the chat, it's almost like they threw out a boat anchor. It was kind of like, I mean, if you watch the video, you see them really check up, and I'm like not checking up.
Everybody stop now. Chad's
And
coming.
so I panicked because I was like, oh crap, I'm going to hit him. Like that was my initial thought because I was like, I'm not stopping, he's stopping. And even though I'm kind of more off to the right than he is, there's a right-handed turn and I'm not slowed down enough and I'm going to clobber him, and like that moment of panic, that all of us have had before, like kind of came over me. And then I the next thought in my head was let go of the brake, but don't hit the throttle. Because I had started hitting the brake at this point because I thought, oh dear, I'm going to hit him. And then I thought, no, 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 let go of the brake and just beat him to the turn, like before he turns right. Like, not because I want to pass him and, take the lead. Like, this is just because I'm trying to avoid a crash at this point. And so he's slowing down, and I started to hit the brakes and then, like, immediately let off. So in the video, it almost looks like I pick up speed, but in reality, I never touched the throttle. I just kind of like coasted. And
You stopped stopping.
I stopped stopping, exactly. And then I thought I need to get as far right as possible. And as Adam pointed out, if you watch the video, and I did it from the blimp view, I was like inches from the wall. I mean, it was so close. I don't know how I didn't hit the wall. And I like flew through the curve, and there was some slight contact that I made with the leader with the left rear and the right front of his car. But I pretty much cleared him. I cleared both cars entering the bus stop like in one swift motion. Like, it's really freaking cool. But wow, is it a dumb move and not what I was trying to do. Like, that could have been a disaster. But it looks sweet. It really does.
It looks like you are a god among people driving. It's like, well,
Yeah.
I was just trying not to die.
I was just trying to see the turn. That's all I was trying to do. And then suddenly I went from third to first in like 500 feet. So it was a really cool move. And as soon as I came out of the bus stop, I came on the radio to Danny and I was like, that's not what I was trying to do, but I'm glad it worked out.
Worked out pretty good. Sorry though.
He was like, he was like, that was sweet, man. That was a good move. And I'm like, that's not what I felt like when it was happening. I felt sick to my stomach.
Like, I'm going to die. I'm going to run into everyone.
I know. It's like, oh dear, oh, well, that was kind of cool. That worked out well. Okay, I'm happy. But yeah, we got the lead, and then we led for a while until, we did the driver swap, and then that killed us time-wise. But the last thing I'll say is that for Danny and I both, or at least I think I can include Danny. He can tell me in the chat otherwise. But I felt like for the both of us, we both struggled, well, not struggled, but had not so pleasant days at the 6 hours of the Glen. And it was a good race for the both of us to get back up on the horse, so to speak. And neither one, like, I'm sure we all made like little tiny mistakes with like breaking points or whatever, but neither one of us spun, neither one of us hit anybody, neither one of us did anything, that you wouldn't want to do, essentially. So it was a good get back up on the horse race for, I think, both of us. I know for me at least. And, kind of regain your confidence and get back out there and whoop some tush,
Right.
even though we finished third.
Still good though. After
Yeah, still finished third.
Mr. Distracted, crashy Glenn guy, it was probably good to make a good move. Well, so you were paying attention. You weren't trying to thank anybody going into the corners, so that's
I know.
good. Hey, well, looks like he's slowing down to give me this spot. I should probably thank him for that.
And wreck the leader. Yes, I like what Zombie51 said in the chat. Isana.
Oh, but
And then on the flip side, I haven't done any racing since then, but I have been kind of getting the itch. As I mentioned it on Twitter, I watched some of the videos that are in that blog from Steve, and it kind of got me back into the whole, I want to do a race. And I'd already actually been planning to do this, but now I'm, barring any kind of craziness, I'm definitely going to do it. I'm pretty sure this weekend that the ITSR Power Series is going to Kentucky. I don't think they're taking off for the fourth weekend. And so if that's the case, and they are in fact racing, they are at Kentucky. And so I will totally be doing that race. Although I think I might start from the rear because it's been a while since I've been in the Cup car. And my connection hasn't been as great lately, so I want to make sure that it's going okay. But I might start from the rear because one of the last times I drove the Cup car, I was kind of horrible. And so I want to ease back into it.
I was kind of, sort of horrible. Yeah.
Really was. Like, I didn't have any speed. I couldn't drive the car. So I might just kind of start in the back because I don't think I'm going to be very good at it. That car's changed in the last couple of months. So I got to figure it out again. So, but I'm going to go race for the fun of it anyways.
Cool. Yeah, I should. It's just been so much going on that I just haven't had a chance to really do much else than this Verizon stuff. But at least I'm keeping up with that, which feels good. And
Yes.
also, while we were doing the show, and after I talked about it, I have now purchased and downloaded the Z1 dashboard analyzer stuff. So hopefully, I'll get a chance to use that before the next show, so I can kind of. I mean, we've talked about it before, but just at least give my my impressions of how it's working out for me, and give a different perspective on it. So, because quite frankly, the thought of having being able to put it on a different computer and have that in a different position actually is pretty dang cool to me, rather than having it on a dashboard. Now that I get my button box as well, thanks to them sending that out, I can have a button that can actually switch stuff in there as well, which is pretty cool. So.
Yep.
Have I given you a birthday? I'm pretty sure that I've wished you happy birthday because we talked.
Actually, you haven't.
I thought I could have swore I did before, but
No. And see, they always say Canadians are so friendly. I beg to differ.
no, we're jerks. I mean, because we're all cold up here, man. Yeah,
Yeah, cold and depressed.
yeah, that's us. It was man, it was cold yesterday, although slightly cold because the my eaves, as I found out, were very clogged. So we had like a torrential downpour
Now,
just out of
I
nowhere.
have to say something. Please stop.
Okay.
Why do you guys call them eaves?
I don't know. I mean,
Because we call them gutters.
well, they are gutters, but I don't know. They're eaves dropping. Eaves.
You said that on last week's show, I think, and then you've said it tonight. And like I remembered on last week's show, and I didn't ask, and so now I was like, I have to ask.
Okay, I don't know. Anyway. The eaves were really clogged, so I was running around, and all of a sudden the torrential downpour came down, and all of a sudden there's water pouring on one side of my house and water pouring on the other side of my house in this one spot, and I know that my house with a basement is susceptible to water coming in. So I'm running around, and the thunder's going, and the lightning's flashing, and I'm running around and and trying to get buckets underneath the spots so the water doesn't get into the ground and stuff. And yeah, that was fun. That was cold. So I was cold yesterday, and it was a warm day.
Yeah.
But so today that was my big project, was to go up and clean the gutters out and get all the stuff out of them so that they could perform their job. And then I whacked a wasp nest with a golf club because there was a wasp
There you
nest
go.
in the tree. It's like, well, I don't want you there.
How
So,
far did you hit it?
well, it was up above me, so I could just hit it just enough to kind of break it apart. So,
Ah,
but yeah, it was a team effort. My wife sprayed it with the wasp spray to make sure they were at least groggy or something, and then I whacked it with a golf club, knocked it onto the ground. So that was my adventure. See, I mean, a busy life, man. Busy life.
yeah.
See,
Tell you what.
see, there's your marriage lesson, ladies and gentlemen. You see, we work together. You see, we killed wasp nests together, and she delivers me, Slurpees in the middle of my show. So, see, it's
Yeah,
all good.
I tell you, I got to get married quick.
Well, you don't want to be tackling wasp nests on your own. I mean, no, no,
Yeah,
no.
it is kind of a scary scene.
Yeah, see, I had backup, and all I had to do was run faster than her if things went really bad.
It's just like when you're chasing bears. It's like, I don't got to outrun the bear, I just got to outrun you.
But anyway, I think we've reached the end of our content for this week's show. Hopefully, we have brightened your day a little bit, or at least given you something to listen to on the commute to help you out, and all of that good stuff. We'll be back next week, sometime. I don't know when. I mean, I would anticipate everything will go back to normal schedule, but who can really say? I'm
And
pretty
for the
sure.
record, for those of you that even cared before, I've stopped making our pre-show posts on our website that mentioned when we were going to do the show because we don't know.
Life is busy, ladies and gentlemen. Heck, with the way that my last few weeks have been going, you're lucky you get any shows. It's
I
been
know.
pretty stupid busy around here, and stuff going on, and family things and whatnot. So count your blessings that we're even doing this thing, because it could be worse than being random when it comes to time. But anyway, we will be back next week, probably, and
Probably.
at some point in time. Well, we've got to at least make it to 150. I mean, we can't get this close and then have it all fall off the rails now.
Put an asterisk, see footnote.
But anyway, thanks to all of you out there for listening, and happy birthday to Chad. If you wanted to send him some tweets and stuff.
Now the day after.
Well, I would have done it yesterday, but you said we couldn't do a show, so
I know.
apparently you had to eat food that people were providing because they're your friends and family.
Yeah. Well, that's more important.
Remember that the show is available for download on iTunes under the podcast section, where we'd really appreciate a review to help us get the word out. The show is also archived on YouTube under Ratface Productions, and it's Cadillac. You can check out the website for live shows, archives, information, links, and the polls you mentioned, which, hey,
That was a long pause.
June just ended. I
Oh, yeah.
think I had a stroke.
You did. And when we're stopped live, there will be a new podcast. Yes, there will be one of those, but there will also need to be a new poll question.
Yes.
And we totally didn't read the poll results, but
Well,
we'll do it next week.
Well, I mean, we did it on the day after it ended. We'll do that next week. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, you can if you all like polls, what are they talking about? Well, you can go head on over to iRacingTodayRadio.com and you can find out. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at iRacingToday. He is at It's Cadillac.
And as always, you can email any questions, comments, and the poll suggestions that you may have to feedback at iRacingTodayRadio.com. I actually had a poll question suggestion in the form or the chat here during the show. So, booyah. Anyways, feel free to add us as friends. I don't know why you'd want to, but anyways, on the iRacing.com members website and come race with us. Again, I don't know why you'd want to, but do it anyways.
Do it anyway because we said so.
Yes, if you aren't yet a member of iRacing, now is a good time to join, as it pretty much always is. Lots of good things happening, but if you do sign up, please refer one of us in the referral box. We would greatly appreciate it to purchase more content and talk about it on the show with the free money that it gives us. Trevor's email is ratface@gmail.com, and mine is iracinglegend@gmail.com. But until the next time, ladies and gentlemen, remember that the race is rarely won on the first turn.
But it is often lost there. Good night, everybody.